Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's June 3rd. Half-hardy plants. That's a term you don't run into very often, but when you do, it can be confusing. Just this morning, I swung by a garden center to check out their clearance plants, and I ended up chatting with a gardener who had run into a label that had that term, half-hardy plants. The term half-hardy simply means that the plant will not survive a frost, that they can't handle a dip in temperatures. So think about your tropicals. Maybe you have like some citrus, an orange tree or a lemon tree, or simply your patio pots. Those would all fall into the category of half-hardy plants. Here's today's brevities. On this day in 1868, Aristides Simoni is born. He helped discover the role of the mosquito in the transmission of yellow fever. And it was on this day in 1830 that David Douglas finally arrived at the Columbia River. He had departed from England on October 31st, Halloween, after visiting his mom. And before he got on the boat, he wanted to make sure that he got his hands on a Bible with large enough font for him to be able to read it. Apparently, his vision was failing him. But he was excited to go on this trip. He wanted to get to the interior of California to discover the botanical treasures. But apparently, plant exploration was taking a toll on Douglas. He ran into someone at Fort Vancouver who thought he was 48 years old. He was 30. Despite his physical challenges, he was eager to get going. And when he reached the Columbia, he immediately set about botanizing the area. In just a few weeks, he was able to send home 3 whole chests of seeds and plants. And in a letter to Professor Hooker, he wrote, "You will begin to think that I manufacture pines at my pleasure." One of the pines that Douglas sent back was the Pinus nobilis. It was Douglas's favorite, and it commanded a hefty price tag at the time, 15 to 20 guineas per plant. And it's the birthday of Josephine Baker, one of the greatest entertainers of the past century. Josephine's path led her to Paris, where she became an instant sensation. By 1929, she was the highest paid entertainer in Europe, and she bought a chateau just outside of Paris. Baker loved to garden. She loved to throw glamorous parties on the lawns of the estate, which were flanked by magnolia trees and enormous rhododendrons. The property boasted its own orchards, multiple greenhouses, vegetable plots, and even a rivulet. In Unearthed Words, here's a little snippet about June from Nathaniel Parker Willis. He was an American author, and during the mid-1800s, he was the highest paid magazine writer of his day. It is the month of June, the month of leaves and roses, when pleasant sights salute the eyes and pleasant scents the noses. Today's book recommendation is one I'm so excited about. It's called Kiftsgate Court Gardens by Vanessa Berridge. The subtitle of the book is intriguing. It's 3 generations of women gardeners. It features the influences of Heather Muir, who began gardening at Kiftsgate a century ago with her husband. Heather's daughter, Diane Binney, took over the estate, including the garden, in the 1940s. 4 decades later, in the 1980s, Diane's daughter, Anne, took over the property, and she owns it to this day. So if you like gardens, a little bit of garden history, mixed in with some personal biographies. This gorgeous book is right up your alley. There's a link that you can use to purchase it in today's show notes. For today's garden chore, it's time to find perennials for those wet but sunny areas in the garden. There are a number of plants that like this kind of condition, and many of them are favorites of mine. Ligularia Filipendula. Filipendula rubra is the queen of the prairie plant with the pink plumy tops. I love that one. Lysamachia and Rodgersia. Oh, I planted Rodgersia a couple of years ago, and I've fallen in love with the magnificent leaves of this plant. They're huge. It looks positively prehistoric once it gets established. Anyway, just a few ideas to get you started. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1909 that the Irish immigration reformer Charlotte Grace O'Brien died. After a life devoted to improving the lot of others, O'Brien devoted her leisure time to writing and to the study of plant life. O'Brien had found a place for herself along the River Shannon. She called it Ardenoir, which means the height of gold, in reference to the golden gorse that covered the hillside in spring. She once mused, the baby heather that blossoms so soon in the splendid heat that comes after June. When one considers her humanitarian work across both sides of the Atlantic, as well as her genius for gardening, it's stunning to discover that by the time O'Brien reached adulthood, she was completely deaf. In 1879, she wrote about it, saying, "Oh, bitter loss, all nature's voice is dumb. Oh, loss beyond all loss. About my neck the children cast their arms. No voices break upon my ear. No sounds of laughter come. Child's laughter, wrought of love and life and bliss. Heedless, I leave the rest, had I but this." In the last half of her life, O'Brien firmly established herself as a writer, a poet, and a plant collector. Her last article contained these prophetic lines: "I will puzzle the botanists of another generation. And when my bones are dust and my good spade rust, when my house is pulled down and my garden asphalt and bricks, my extra special wild briars and my daffodils will still linger on the hillside and scent the bloomy air for generations that know me not, nor mine." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.